before you hit that subscribe button, let me tell you something they'll never put in any official report. Something that'll make you understand why I wake up at 3 a.m., drenched in sweat, listening for sounds that shouldn't exist. Because what happened in those Appalachian Mountains wasn't just a crash. It was an education. A brutal lesson in humility delivered by things that were here long before us. And will be here long after we're gone. My name doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what I saw. What we all saw that night in October 2019, when our Black Hawk went down 70 miles deep in the Daniel Boone National Forest. 8 of us went into those mountains. 3 came out. And none of us were the same. They called it mechanical failure, rotor malfunction. The NTSB closed the case in 6 weeks. Clean, simple, convenient. They lied. The Chinook's interior smelled like hydraulic fluid and old coffee. Standard night transport, nothing complicated. Fort Campbell to a training site near the Kentucky-Virginia border. Our unit, ODA 7253, had run this route a dozen times. Routine. Staff Sergeant Marcus Webb sat across from me, eyes closed, headphones in. To my left, Corporal Danny Ortiz cleaned his rifle for the 3rd time, obsessive as always. The others were scattered throughout the cargo bay. Lieutenant Harding reviewing mission specs on a tablet. Specialist Chen half asleep against his ruck, Martinez and Jackson playing cards under the dim red combat lighting. Our pilot, Chief Warrant Officer Sarah Voss, had 11 years and over 2,000 flight hours. Co-pilot Lieutenant Morris was newer but sharp, professional, by the book. Everything was by the book. At 2,147 hours, we were cruising at 8,000 feet, following the ridgeline. The Appalachians stretched below us like a dark ocean, endless canopy broken only by occasional logging roads and the serpentine glint of creeks catching moonlight. Beautiful in that primordial way that reminds you how small you are. At 2,151 hours, the instrument panel started screaming. I felt it before I heard it, that stomach-drop sensation when physics suddenly stops making sense. The Chinook lurched sideways, hard enough to slam Ortiz into the bulkhead. His rifle clattered across the deck. The card game exploded into airborne chaos. What the hell? Martinez didn't finish. The aircraft yelled violently right, then overcorrected left. Red emergency lights strobed. The hydraulics shrieked like something dying. Through the cockpit door, always left open during transport, I saw Voss wrestling the controls. Morris was shouting coordinates, elevation, something about complete hydraulic failure across all systems. Impossible. Redundancies upon redundancies. It doesn't just fail, but it did. Brace. 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 Voss's voice cut through the chaos. Utterly calm despite the madness. Professional to the end. We had maybe 20 seconds. The world became a screaming centrifuge of loose equipment. Bodies struggling into crash positions. The deafening roar of engines fighting gravity. Through the window, I caught glimpses of treetops rushing up, too fast, too close. Chun was praying in Mandarin. Jackson had his eyes locked on mine, and in that moment we shared the same thought. This is it. This is how it ends. The first impact tore off the rear rotor. The sound, metal shearing, composite shattering. It's a frequency that bypasses your ears and goes straight into your bones. The Chinook spun like a broken toy, tail section disintegrating into the canopy. We hit again. Harder. The starboard side crumpled inward with a sound like 1,000 car crashes compressed into 1 second. I saw Martinez's harness snap, saw him ragdoll across the cargo bay, and disappear through a rupture in the fuselage. Just gone. No scream. No time. Third impact. The world inverted. My harness bit deep, suspended me upside down as the aircraft rolled, tumbling down what must have been a steep ravine. Each impact was a thunderclap of destruction. Somewhere in the chaos, I heard Chen screaming. Then nothing. Silence. I came to an absolute darkness, hanging inverted in my harness, ears ringing with a high-pitched whine that wouldn't stop. The smell hit first. Aviation fuel, hot metal, pine sap, and something organic and wrong. Rupture hydraulic lines mixing with leak fluids, creating a chemical stench that burned my throat. Sound off, someone croaked. Lieutenant Harding. Always a leader, even concussed and bleeding. Webb, here. Strained. Pain in that voice. Ortiz. Alive. Jackson, I'm good. I'm good. One by one, Chin didn't answer. Neither did Martinez. Through the shattered cockpit, no sound from Voss or Morris. The silence from the front was its own answer. I fumbled with my harness release, dropped 3 feet onto what had been the ceiling, landed on something soft. In the dark, I couldn't see what. Didn't want to. My hands found my tack light, clicked it on. I wish I hadn't. The cargo bay had become a tomb of twisted metal and broken bodies. Chun hung motionless in his harness, neck at an angle that doesn't support life. Martinez was simply gone. The hole he disappeared through now showed only darkness and vegetation. The cockpit was worse. Voss and Morris were still strapped in, but the entire front section had accordioned, compressing a half its original depth. We'd crashed in a steep ravine, maybe 60 feet down from the ridgeline. The Chinook had tumbled, destroying itself against trees and rocks, finally coming to rest on its side against a massive oak that had arrested our descent. Probably saved whoever survived. 5 dead in seconds. 3 left standing. We need to move, Harding said, already forcing himself upright despite the blood sheeting down his face from a scalp wound. Fuel leak, if there's a spark. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. We grabbed what we could. Rifles, medical kit, radio. 3 rucks that weren't destroyed. I did a final sweep of my light. Tried not to look at Chen's face, and hauled myself through the torn fuselage into the night. The Appalachian forest swallowed us whole. Part 2, target, 1000 words. The cold hit like a slap. October in the mountains, probably low 40s and dropping. We crashed in a ravine so steep and densely forested that moonlight barely penetrated. The trees here were old growth, massive oaks and poplars that had stood for centuries, their canopies so thick it created a twilight. Whirled even in daytime. At night, it was a void. We moved 50 meters upslope before Harding called a halt. Basic tactics. Get distant from the crash site. Establish security. Assess. Webb slumped against a tree, favoring his left side. Ribs, probably cracked. Ortiz was bleeding from a gash across his forearm, but mobile. Jackson seemed unhurt physically, but his hands shook as he checked his rifle. Combat medic training kicked in. I did rapid assessments, field dressed what I could with our limited supplies. Harding pulled out the radio. Tried 3 channels. Static. The mountains were notorious for dead zones, and the crash had likely damaged the antenna array. Our backup handheld units were in the destroyed section of the fuselage. APERB. I asked. Emergency position indicating radio beacon. Every military aircraft carried them. Still in the bird. Harding said, his jaw clenched. Can't risk going back. Fuel situation. We all understood. We were 70 miles from the nearest road, in terrain that averaged 1,000-foot elevation change per mile. No comms. No beacon. 3 wounded men with limited ammunition and supplies. Rescue would come eventually. When we missed our check-in, search and rescue birds would launch. But in this terrain at night with no beacon signal, we were looking at 12 hours minimum. Probably 24. We hold position until dawn, Harding decided. Then we climb the ridgeline, find high ground, try for signal. Sound tactics. By the book. We set perimeter, establish watch rotation. 2 on, 2 resting. I drew first watch with Jackson. That's when we heard it. At first, I thought it was wind, a rhythmic sound, almost like breathing, coming from deeper in the ravine below us. But the air was still, dead still. Click, click, click. You hear that? Jackson whispered. Rifle already coming up. I did. A clicking sound, sharp and organic, like someone rapidly snapping their tongue against the roof of their mouth. But too loud, too resonant. Click, click, click. Pause. Click, click, click. It moved, east to west, maybe 100 meters out, paralleling our position. Animal? Jackson's voice was tight. Maybe. I didn't believe it. Animals don't move like that. With purpose, with pattern. The clicking stopped. For 30 seconds, just forest silence. And that's when I realized how wrong that was. No insects. No night birds. No rustle of small mammals. The forest had gone completely, unnaturally quiet. Then the clicking came again. Closer, maybe 60 meters now. And it was answered from the opposite direction. Upslope toward the ridgeline. Another series of clicks. Different rhythm. A response. They're communicating. I breathed. Jackson clicked his tack light on, swept the beam into the darkness. Trees. Shadows. Nothing. Movement. Just at the edge of the light's reach. Something large shifted behind an oak trunk. Too quick to identify. Too deliberate to be natural. Contact, Jackson said, loud enough to wake the others. Harding and Ortiz were up instantly, weapons ready. Webb struggled upright, grimacing. What did you see? Harding demanded. Don't know, Jackson admitted. Something big, moving in the trees. The clicking had stopped, but now we heard something else, a rustling, like something heavy pushing through underbrush. Multiple somethings, circling. They're flanking us, Ortiz said, stating the obvious. Webb keyed his tack light, swept the perimeter. More movement, shapes that didn't resolve into anything identifiable. Staying just beyond clear sight. Testing us. Probing. Weapons free, Harding ordered. Control bursts only. We need to conserve ammo. We formed a tight circle, backs together, each covering an arc. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was wrong. Predators don't coordinate like this. Don't use tactics. Click, click, click. Directly in front of me now, maybe 40 meters. I centered my rifle, peered through the optic, and saw eyes, not reflecting light like deer or coyote, glowing with their own pale luminescence. Wrong color, wrong height, easily 7 feet off the ground. Multiple sets scattered through the trees. Sir, I said carefully, I don't think these are animals. Then what are they? Webb's voice cracked slightly. Before anyone could answer, one of them moved into a thin shaft of moonlight between trees. I got a glimpse, just a glimpse, tall, 8 feet at least. Elongated limbs that bent wrong, too many joints. Skin that looked wet, almost translucent in the dim light, stretched over 2 prominent bones. The head was the worst. Too large, too angular, with those luminous eyes set too far apart above the mouth that split the face nearly to the ears. Then it was gone, melted back into shadow with unnatural speed. Jesus Christ, Ortiz whispered. Steady, Harding commanded. But I heard the tremor beneath the authority. The clicking intensified. All around us now. 6 sources. 8. 10. A chorus of alien communication, deliberate and coordinated. They were deciding what to do with us. On my mark, Harding said quietly, we move upslope. Rapid tactical retreat. Stay together. Nobody breaks formation. They'll follow, Webb stated. I know. Click, click, click. The sound was closer now. Intimate. Like they wanted us to know exactly how near they were. Mark, Harding said. We moved. The slope was brutal. 45 degrees in places, loose scree and roots that grabbed at boots. We climbed in formation, weapons oriented outward, moving as fast as terrain and Webb's ribs allowed. Behind us, the clicking followed, pacing us, never rushing, never falling behind. Patient. They're hurting us, Jackson panted. He was right. Every time we tried to angle east or west, the clicking intensified from that direction, pushing us back to a northward route, upslope, toward the ridgeline. Let them, Harding grunted. High ground is what we need anyway. But I heard the doubt in his voice. We were playing their game now. 50 meters up. 100. The ravine fell way below us. The crash site silhouette barely visible through the trees. My calves burned. Webb was struggling. Each breath a wheeze of pain. That's when the clicking stopped. All of it, simultaneously, like someone had cut a wire. We froze, weapons up, scanning. Nothing. No movement. No sound. Why'd they stop? Ortiz voiced what we all thought. Then we heard it. Different sound. Deeper. Lower. Frequency. A growl. Not the clicking creatures. Something else. Something that made the clicking things go silent. It came from upslope, where we were heading. And it was the most primal sound I'd ever heard. A bass rumble that resonated in your chest. That triggered every prey instinct evolution had hardwired into human DNA. Whatever made that sound was old, ancient, apex. Down, Harding whispered urgently. Everyone down. Now! We dropped, pressed ourselves into the slope, tried to become part of the earth. Part 3, target, 1000 words. The growl came again, closer. A sound that registered as much through vibration as hearing, rattling to the ground and up through my bones. My lizard brain screamed to run, to break cover, to do anything except lie still while that thing approached. Training 1. Barely. Through the gaps in vegetation, I saw it. Massive didn't cover it. The shape that moved along the ridgeline above us stood at least 9 feet tall, maybe more. Bipedal. Shoulders broad enough that it had to turn slightly to navigate between trees that 3 men couldn't link arms around. Covered in dark hair that absorbed moonlight, making it a moving void against the forest. But it was the way it moved that stopped my heart. Fluid, purposeful, intelligent. This wasn't an animal. This was something else entirely. It stopped directly above our position, maybe 30 meters upslope, stood completely still, and looked down. Even in the darkness, I felt its eyes on us. Assessment, calculation. The weight of that gaze was physical, pressing down like atmospheric pressure before a storm. Nobody breathed. Nobody moved. The clicking started again, but different now. Frantic, rapid, coming from multiple positions around us. The creatures that had been hurting us were communicating urgently. Warning? Retreat? The massive shape above us turned its head, tracking the clicking sounds. Then it moved. Fast. Impossibly fast for something that size. It descended the slope in 3 bounds, covering 30 meters in seconds, and crashed into the forest below our position with an impact that shook the ground. Trees snapped. Something screamed. A sound too alien to be called human, but too articulate to be animal. Then chaos. The clicking became shrieking. Multiple voices, high-pitched and terrified. More impacts. The sound of something heavy being thrown through brush. A wet, tearing sound that triggered every horror my imagination could provide. Move. Harding hissed. Now. While they're distracted. We didn't argue. We scrambled upslope like our lives depended on it, because they did. The ridgeline was a knife edge of exposed rock and stunted trees. The first place we'd had a clear view of sky since the crash. Stars burned overhead with winter clarity. Beautiful and indifferent. Behind us, downslope, the sound of violence continued. Something was killing the clicking creatures. Systematically. Efficiently. What the hell is down there? Ortiz demanded, voice shaking. Doesn't matter, Harding said. We need distance. Now. We moved along the ridgeline, putting meters between us and the carnage. Webb was barely keeping pace, each step a visible effort. Jackson kept looking back, rifle ready, like he expected something to burst from the tree line at any moment. The violence stopped. Forest silence returned, worse than before. Absolute. It's over, Jackson said. More hope than statement. He was wrong. The shape emerged from the forest below us with deliberate slowness. The massive figure we'd seen before, now fully visible in moonlight. It stepped onto an exposed rock outcrop and stopped, looking up at us. We froze. Every instinct screamed to run, but moving felt like it would trigger something. Like we were mice under a cat's paw, alive only because a predator hadn't decided otherwise. It stood there for 10 seconds. 20. Studying us. Then it did something that broke my understanding of reality. It raised one massive arm, hand easily twice the size of mine, and pointed, deliberately, not at us, east, along the ridgeline. Is it? Webb couldn't finish. Showing us a direction, I completed. My voice sounded alien to my own ears. The arm lowered. The figure watched us a moment longer. Then it turned and walked back into the forest. No hurry, no threat display. Just left, like it had delivered a message, and now expected us to be smart enough to follow instructions. Sir, Ortiz looked at Harding. Our lieutenant stared at the spot where the figure had vanished. His tactical brain was visible fighting his trained rationality. Everything we'd learned, everything we'd been taught, none of it covered this. We go east, he finally said. Whatever that thing is, it just saved us from those others. And if it wanted us dead, we'd be dead. Sound reasoning. Terrible logic. But true. We went east. The Ridgeline Trail was old. Not a hiking path. Too narrow, too rough. Animal trail, maybe, but maintained. Deliberate, like something large used it regularly and kept it clear. We walked for an hour in silence, weapons ready but not raised. The forest remained quiet. No clicking, no growls, just our labored breathing and boot steps on stone. Webb collapsed twice. The second time, he didn't get up on his own. Jackson and I hauled him upright, supported his weight between us. Can't keep going, Webb gasped. Rib puncturing lung. Probably internal bleeding. Without medevac soon, he was dying. You will, Harding said flatly, because stopping means dying, and I don't leave men behind. Not breathing ones. Harsh. True. Webb nodded, kept moving. Another 30 minutes. The ridgeline began descending, following a natural saddle between peaks. Through breaks in the canopy, I caught glimpses of distant lights. Civilization. Too far to reach tonight, but proof it existed. There, Ortiz said, pointing. A clearing open ahead, maybe 40 meters across, dominated by a single massive oak in its center. And around the oak's base, arranged in a deliberate circle, were stones. Not natural. Placed. Ancient, covered in moss and lichen, but unmistakably intentional. What is this? Jackson whispered. Sanctuary, said a voice behind us. We spun, weapons up. An old man stood at the trail edge. Weathered face, white beard, dressed in worn hunting gear. He'd appeared from nowhere, impossibly silent. Easy, he said, raising empty hands. Name's Caleb. Been watching you since you crashed. Figured you'd end up here eventually. His eyes swept over us, lingering on Webb. That one needs attention. Come on, camp's close. How did you, Harding started, know you crashed? Know you'd come this way. Caleb smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes, because this is his territory. And when he points people east, they end up here. Been that way for 60 years that I know of. Probably longer. His? Ortiz asked. The one who saved you, Caleb said simply. The guardian. The old man of the mountain. Call him what you want. These hills have 1,000 names for him. He turned, started walking. You coming? Your man's dying, and I've got a radio that actually works. We followed. What choice did we have? Caleb's camp was a cabin built into the hillside. Half structure, half cave, invisible until you were almost on top of it. Inside, surprisingly well-equipped. Shortwave radio, medical supplies, weapons, provisions for long-term isolation. You live here? I asked while treating Webb's injuries with real supplies. 70 years now, Caleb said, working the radio with practice efficiency. Since I saw what you saw. Since I learned what most folks never do. Which is, Harding demanded. Caleb stopped, looked at us with eyes that had seen too much. That we're not the only intelligent things in these mountains. Never were. Part 4, target, 1000 words. Webb's breathing stabilized after I'd administered a chest seal and morphine from Caleb's surprisingly extensive medical kit. The wound was bad, collapsed lung, probable internal bleeding, but he'd lived long enough for extraction. Assuming extraction came. Radios military grade. Harding observed, studying the equipment. How does a hermit in the Appalachians get encrypted comm gear? I'm not a hermit, Caleb said, adjusting frequencies. I'm an observer. Been out here since 1952, documenting, recording, keeping people away from places they shouldn't go. He glanced at us. Government knows I'm here. Unofficially, there's an understanding. An understanding about what? Jackson asked. Caleb found the frequency he wanted. Keyed the mic. November Whiskey 77 Echo. This is Watchtower 36, emergency traffic. Over. Static. Then, Watchtower 36, authenticate. Caleb rattled off a code sequence I didn't recognize. Outdated protocol, pre-digital era, but whoever was on the other end accepted it. Go ahead, 36. Chinook down in Sector Baker 7. 5 Kia, 3 survivors, 1 critical. Need immediate dust-off to grid November Delta 4178-3. LZ is cold. Repeat, LZ is cold. Be advised, standard recovery protocols apply. Do not, I say again, do not deviate from approach corridor or land outside marked LZ. A pause. Then, understood, 3-6. Birds launching in 20 mics. ETA your position, 90 minutes. Roger. 3-6 out. Caleb set the mic down, turned to face our stairs. You're military, Harding said. Statement, not question. Was. Ranger Battalion, Korean War. Had an encounter in these mountains during a training exercise in 52. Caleb poured coffee from a thermos, hand steady despite his age. Lost half my squad to things that don't officially exist. Army made me an offer. Disappear into mountains, keep watch, report unusual activity. Make sure civilians don't stumble into the wrong places. Been doing it ever since. The clicking creatures, I said. You know what they are. Rakes, Caleb replied. That's what we call them. Don't know what they call themselves, if they call themselves anything. Been in these mountains longer than humans. Usually stay deep, away from people. But sometimes they push into territory that's not theirs. He sipped his coffee. When they do, he pushes back. The large one, Ortiz said. The Guardian, you called it. Him, Caleb corrected. Not it. He's earned that much respect. He moved to a wall covered in photographs, newspaper clippings, sketches. Decades of documentation. Your people call him Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Wild Man. Every culture that's touched these mountains has a name for him, but he's not legend. He's real, and he's smart. Smarter than most people want to admit. The photos were grainy but clear enough. Massive bipedal figures caught at distance. Footprints beside rulers showing 18-inch tracks. Blurry but compelling. Why doesn't the government acknowledge them? Harding demanded. If they're real, if they've known since the 50s. Because of the rakes, Caleb interrupted, and others like them, the things that hunt in the deep places, the old predators. He turned back to us. The Guardians, there's more than one, but not many. They hold territory, keep the worst things in check, create a buffer between the deep wilderness and human civilization. They're not friendly, but they're not hostile unless provoked. They maintain balance. So the government just leaves them alone? Jackson sounded skeptical. More than that, protects them. Unofficially. Why do you think certain areas are designated permanent wilderness? Why some valleys are mysteriously off-limits, even a logging or mining that would be profitable? Caleb smiled grimly. There's a treaty, unspoken, unwritten, but real. We stay out of certain places. They keep the real monsters contained. Everyone survives. That's insane, Ortiz said. Is it? Caleb challenged. You saw what those rakes did. Coordinated hunting tactics. Tool use. Those clicks are language. Intelligence enough to set ambushes. Now imagine dozens of them pushing into populated areas. Imagine what they do to a small town. A hiking trail full of families. He shook his head. The Guardians prevent that. They're apex predators, territorial, and they don't tolerate the rakes' expanding range. They're the wall between their world and ours. Silence while we process that. Every instinct said it was paranoid delusion, except we'd seen it, lived it. Tonight, I said slowly, when that Guardian pointed us east. He was directing us to you. To safety, Caleb confirmed. He knows I'm here. Knows what I do. We have an arrangement. When people accidentally stumble into situations like yours, he guides them here if he can. I call an extraction. Keep mouths shut. File the proper reports with the proper people who understand what really happened. And the official story? Harding's jaw was tight. Mechanical failure. Tragic accident. Whatever keeps the truth buried. Caleb met his eyes. Because the alternative is panic. Congressional investigations. Media attention. Thousands of people flooding these mountains looking for proof. And then the treaty breaks down. The Guardians retreat. The rakes expand. And people start dying in numbers that can't be hidden. So we lie. Webb croaked from his cot. You survive, Caleb corrected. You go home. You process what you've seen however you need to. And you keep your mouth shut because the people who need to know already do, and the people who don't need to know wouldn't believe you anyway. The radio crackled. Watchtower 3-6, be advised, birds are wheels up. ETA your position 65 mics. Roger, Caleb replied. Rescue is coming. Extraction. Return to normalcy. But nothing would ever be normal again. We spent the remaining hour in near silence. Caleb showed us more documentation. Decades of sightings, encounters, carefully maintained records sent to anonymous government addresses. A parallel intelligence network tracking things the public would never know existed. How many of you are there? I asked. Watchers like you? Enough. Scattered through wilderness areas across North America. Appalachians, Rockies, Pacific Northwest, Alaska, anywhere the deep wilderness touches civilization. Caleb closed a logbook. Most of us are like me. Soldiers who saw something, got recruited to monitor it, keep the boundary intact. Recruited or silenced? Harding said darkly. Recruited, Caleb insisted. Nobody's forced. But once you've seen, once you understand what's really out there, most of us choose to help, because the alternative is letting people wander ignorant into places that will kill them. The sound of rotors echoed in the distance. Twin Black Hawks, running lights visible against the stars, approaching from the south, precisely on time. Professional. That's your ride, Caleb said. They'll take you to Fort Campbell. Debrief will be classified. You'll sign non-disclosure agreements. Official report will be sanitized. He paused. But here's the important part. Believe the sanitized version. In your head, when you think back on tonight, let yourself believe it was mechanical failure. Let yourself doubt what you saw. Because the alternative, living with certain knowledge of what's out there, it's a weight most people can't carry. You carry it, Jackson pointed out. I chose to. You didn't. Don't let tonight destroy the rest of your lives. Part 5, target, 1000 words. The helicopters touched down in Caleb's clearing with military precision. Rotor wash flattening the grass in pulsing waves. The crews moved fast. Medics at Webb on a stretcher, and loaded within 90 seconds. The rest of us were hustled aboard with our gear. No questions asked, no small talk. As we lifted off, I looked down at Caleb standing in his clearing, one hand raised in farewell. An old man who'd spent 70 years in the wilderness, keeping watch over borders most people didn't know existed. Alone. Then the forest swallowed him, and we banked south toward Campbell. The crew chief handed us headsets, but didn't engage in conversation. Professional silence. These men knew something, even if they didn't know details. They'd done extractions like this before. Through the window, I watched the Appalachian ridgeline slide past below us, dark and endless. And now, knowing what moved beneath that canopy, the wilderness looked different. Not empty, occupied, by things far older than human civilization. You good? Jackson shouted over the rotor noise. I nodded, lied. None of us were good. None of us would be again. Fort Campbell, 0437 hours. We were separated immediately. Medical evaluation, individual debriefing rooms, no contact between us. Standard procedure after traumatic events. They said, prevent collaborative memory contamination. More likely, prevent us from coordinating our stories. My debrief officer was a colonel I didn't recognize. No name tag. Professional, courteous, and utterly unreadable. For the record, state your name and unit. I did. Describe the events of October 23rd, from mission launch to extraction. I started with the truth. Routine transport, catastrophic mechanical failure, crash, survival. 5 Kia. Then I got to the night in the forest. We heard animal sounds. Coyotes, maybe. Mountain lions. Hard to identify in the darkness and with the stress. The colonel's pen didn't slow. Did you encounter any wildlife directly? No, sir. We focus on establishing security perimeter, treating wounded, and moving to high ground for extraction. Did you see anything unusual? Anything that doesn't fit standard wildlife profile? Here was a decision point. The moment where I chose what kind of man I'd be. I thought about Caleb's words, about living with the weight of knowledge, about the treaty between worlds, about the horror in those clicking creatures' coordination, about the casual power in the Guardian's movements, about the fact that sometimes truth isn't what serves survival. No, sir, just darkness, unfamiliar terrain, and stress-induced hypervigilance. Everything we heard could be explained by native wildlife and our own elevated threat perception. The colonel nodded. Wrote, did you encounter any individuals in the wilderness? Hikers, hunters, locals? No, sir. Did anyone or anything guide you to the extraction point? No, sir. We followed standard E&E protocols, moved to high ground, located a suitable LZ, and held position. More writing. Then the colonel looked up, met my eyes. For just a moment, I saw something there. Not sympathy exactly. Understanding. You experienced significant trauma, he said quietly. Loss of comrades, injury, isolation in hostile terrain. It's normal for memories to be fragmented, confused, for the mind to fill gaps with imaginative explanations. Yes, sir. The official finding is catastrophic hydraulic failure across redundant systems. Rare but documented failure mode. The crash was survivable due to skilled piloting and favorable terrain. You and your team performed admirably under extreme circumstances. He closed the folder. The Army is proud of your service. You'll receive appropriate recognition for conduct under duress. Translation. Shut up, accept the narrative, move on. Understood, sir. You'll be on medical leave for 6 weeks. Counseling is available and encouraged. After that, return to duty or request reassignment as you prefer. Your service record will reflect nothing but professionalism. Thank you, sir. He stood, extended a hand. I shook it. Sometimes, he said, voice low, the bravest thing a soldier can do is live with questions. Can you do that? I understood. This colonel knew. Maybe not details, but the outline. He was part of the infrastructure Caleb had described, one of the people who kept the boundary intact. Yes, sir. Good man. Dismissed. I saw Webb once more before his medical transfer to Walter Reed. Intensive care, multiple surgeries ahead, but he'd live. Did you tell them? He asked, voice weak but clear. Tell them what? I replied. He studied my face. Then, slowly he smiled. Smart. Probably should forget I asked. Forget asked what? Exactly. We never spoke of that night again. Jackson and Ortiz and Harding and I, we stayed in touch. Unit bonds don't break just because the unit dissolves. But there was an understanding between us, an unspoken agreement. At the annual memorial for our fallen, Voss, Morris, Chun, Martinez, and the others we lost over the years, we'd gather, drink, remember, and sometimes, late in the evening when it was just us, one of us would say something. You ever think about Kentucky? Jackson asked once. 3 years later, bourbon making him philosophical. Which part? Ortiz replied carefully. The part we don't talk about. Silence. Then Harding. I think about it every time I go hiking. Every time I'm in the woods after dark. About what else might be out there. Watching. Does it scare you? I asked. Yes, Harding admitted. But also, it's almost comforting. Knowing there's something keeping the worst things in check. That we're not dealing with the really dangerous predators because something's handling them for us. The treaty, Ortiz said quietly. We all knew. He didn't mean any official government document. The treaty, Jackson agreed. We drank, remembered, didn't say more. Because some truths are too heavy to carry into normal life. Part 6, Target, 1000 words. Years passed. I left active duty, took a contracting job that kept me stateside, married, had kids, built a normal life. But the Appalachians haunted me. I found myself researching obsessively. Missing persons cases in national forests. Thousands every year, many never solved. Ranger reports of unusual findings. Abandoned campsites with no sign of struggle. Gear left behind. Tracks that didn't match any known animal. Historical accounts from indigenous peoples describing forest giants and cave dwellers and things that hunted with intelligence. The patterns were there if you knew how to look. A geography of disappearance. Zones where people vanished with statistical regularity. Always wilderness. Always remote. Always explained away as accidents, exposure, getting lost. But when you mapped them, you saw boundaries. Territories. I reached out to Caleb once, 5 years after crash. Found an old mailing address through veteran networks. Wrote a letter asking if he was still out there, still watching. 2 weeks later, a response arrived. No return address. Still here. Still watching. The forest doesn't change, but the boundary gets harder to maintain every year. More people, more pressure. The treaty holds, but it's tested. Be glad you're out. Be glad you don't have to see what I see. Live your life. Protect your family. Stay away from the deep places. That was all. No signature. I burned the letter after memorizing it. My daughter turned 8 last month. Smart kid, curious, loves hiking. Wants to do the Appalachian Trail when she's older, over my dead body. I tell her we'll do Yosemite instead. The Rockies, anywhere but the Appalachians. She doesn't understand why I'm so specific, why those particular mountains are off limits. My wife thinks I'm being irrational, overprotective. She doesn't know. Nobody knows except the 4 of us who lived it and the silent network of watchers who maintain the boundary. Sometimes I wonder about that. About the weight Caleb described, about whether he was right that most people can't carry the knowledge of what's really out there. Because he was wrong about one thing. You can't choose to forget. You can choose to file it away, to not speak of it, to live as if you don't know. But the knowledge is always there, in the back of your mind, shaping decisions, influencing choices. I'll never camp in old-growth forest again, never hunt in terrain where the trees are too thick, too old. Never let my children wander into wilderness that doesn't have clear cell coverage and regular ranger patrols. Because I know what lives in the margins, in the spaces between human civilization and true wilderness. And I know we're only safe because something stronger has decided to let us be. Last year, there was an incident. News brief, barely covered. Hikers disappeared in the Daniel Boone National Forest. 3 college kids on a backpacking trip. Vanished without trace. Massive search effort. Found nothing. Case eventually closed as presumed dead. Exposure and misadventure. But the location, I recognized it. Sector Baker 7, where we crashed. I made a phone call. Old unit contact who'd moved into intelligence work. Asked careful questions without being specific. That area's weird, he admitted. Rangers say there are places in that forest where their radios fritz, where compasses spin, where even experienced outdoorsmen report feeling watched. Some valleys they won't enter after dark. Unofficial policy. Do they know why? Long pause. If they do, nobody's saying officially. But rumor is there are certain sectors that are permanently off limits to commercial development, protected not for environmental reasons but for other concerns. National security designation, black budget stuff, above my clearance. The Watchers, I said. What? Nothing. Thanks. I hung up. The infrastructure was still there, still maintaining the boundary, still keeping the treaty intact, still burying the truth. I'm writing this now because I'm dying. Cancer. 6 months, maybe less. And when you're facing the end, you stop caring about NDAs and classified protocols and men in suits who make problems disappear. Someone needs to know the truth, the real truth. The Appalachian Mountains and wilderness areas like them are not empty. They're not safe. They're occupied by intelligences older than human civilization, locked in territorial conflicts we barely understand. There are the Guardians, massive, powerful, intelligent beings that most of the world calls mythological. They're real, they're territorial, and they're the only reason worse things don't spill out of the deep wilderness into populated areas. Because there are worse things. The rakes and others like them. Predators that hunt with intelligence and coordination. Things that understand tactics and strategy. Things that view humans as prey. The government knows. Has known for decades, maybe longer. There's an informal treaty. We stay out of certain places, maintain certain boundaries, and in exchange the Guardians contain the threats. Balance is maintained. But that balance is fragile. Every year, more people push into wilderness areas. More development, more recreation, more pressure on territories that should remain undisturbed. And every year, more people disappear in ways that don't quite make sense. The Watchers try to maintain the boundaries, try to guide people away from danger zones, try to keep the treaty intact. But there aren't enough of them, and the pressure grows. If you're reading this, understand, the world is stranger and more dangerous than you've been told. The monsters are real. The forests aren't empty. And we survive only because something has decided, for now, that we're not worth exterminating. Respect the wilderness. Respect the boundaries. When experienced locals tell you certain areas are dangerous, believe them. When rangers close trails without clear explanation, don't argue. And if you're ever in deep wilderness, in old forests where the trees are thick and the canopy blocks the stars, and you hear clicking in the darkness, coordinated, intelligent clicking, do not investigate. Do not shine your light. Do not call out. Stay silent. Stay still. And pray something larger is nearby. Something ancient. Something that considers that territory its own. Because the Guardian is terrifying. But he's not the monster. He's what keeps the real monsters at bay. Part 7, target 1000 words. 3 weeks after I started writing this account, something happened that I need to document. Something that proves the story isn't over, that the boundary is still being maintained, still being defended. My son, against my explicit instructions, went camping with friends in the George Washington National Forest. College kids, convinced they knew better than paranoid parents. They posted their route plan on social media. Deep backcountry, old growth section, 3-day trek. I saw the post and felt my blood turn cold. That area. I recognized the terrain from topographical maps I'd obsessively studied. Close to the boundary zones. Close to where things lived that shouldn't be disturbed. I called him immediately. Got voicemail. Called again. And again. For hours of panic before he called back. Annoyed at my overreaction. Dad, we're fine. Beautiful area. Haven't seen another person all day. Perfect isolation. Listen to me very carefully, I said, forcing calm into my voice. I need you to pack up immediately and hike out. Don't wait until morning. Leave now. That's insane. It's getting dark. We'd be hiking blind. Better blind on a trail than staying where you are. Dad, seriously, what's wrong with you? This paranoia. Did you hear anything unusual? Clicking sounds? Anything coordinated? Silence on the line. Too long. How did you know that? His voice had changed. The annoyed teenager was gone, replaced by something uncertain. My heart stopped. You heard clicking. Maybe an hour ago. Some weird animal sounds. Jake thought it was coyotes, but it was strange. Rhythmic. Sarah said it sounded like communication. How many sources? I don't know. Multiple. Moving around our camp. They stopped about 20 minutes ago. The rakes. Probing. Testing. Deciding if these humans were vulnerable enough to attack. Listen to me very carefully. Whatever you do, do not use loud noises. Do not shine bright lights into the forest. Do not act aggressive or threatening. Pack your gear quietly and efficiently. Then move uphill. Find high ground. Expose rock if possible. Move now. Dad, you're scaring me. Good. Fear will keep you alive. Move. Now. Call me when you're in position. I hung up before he could argue. Then I made other calls. The number I had for emergencies, the one I'd been given during debriefing, told to use only in extreme circumstances. A number that supposedly didn't exist, routed through so many relays that tracing it was impossible. It rang 3 times. Authentication, a voice said. Not identifying, not greeting. Just demanding proof I had the right to use this line. I gave the code I'd memorized 15 years ago and never forgotten. Pause. Then, verified. Nature of emergency. Civilians in sector? I had to dig through memory for the designation. Gulf 6, George Washington National Forest. Possible rake activity. Need immediate watcher response or extraction. Civilians are your relation? No point lying to these people. My son. Another pause. Keys clicking in the background. Confirming Sector Gulf 6. Affirmative. Watcher 314 is operational in that area. Redirecting. Advise your civilians to follow instructions if contacted. Do not, I say again, do not request official rescue services. That will complicate containment. Understood. Call back this line with updates every 30 minutes until situation resolves. Clear. Clear. The line went dead. I stare at my phone. I just activated whatever classified infrastructure Caleb had been part of, confirmed its existence. Confirmed I was still considered part of the network, even tangentially. Confirmed that the treaty was still active, still being enforced. 23 minutes later, my son called back. We're on high ground. Big rock outcrop. Can see for about 50 meters in all directions. His breathing was labored from the rapid climb. Dad, there's something down there, in the trees. Multiple things. We can't see them clearly, but they're moving. Circling. How many people with you? 4. Me, Jake, Sarah, Marcus. 4 targets. The rakes hunted in packs of 6 to 10. Bad odds. Anyone injured? Bleeding? No. Why does blood attract them? Stay calm, stay. Quiet, stay together. Help is coming. What kind of help? Dad, what is happening? How do you explain to your child that monsters are real? That the world he thought he knew was a comfortable lie? Someone who knows that territory is coming. A ranger. When he arrives, do exactly what he says. Don't ask questions. Don't argue. Just obey. Understand. This is insane. I know. Do you understand? Yes. I love you. Stay on the line with me. For the next hour, I listened to my son describe what he was seeing. Shapes moving in the darkness. Eyes that reflected wrong. Clicking sounds that came from multiple directions, coordinating. The rising panic in his voice as he realized this wasn't normal wildlife behavior. I listened and kept him calm and prayed to gods I didn't believe in that the watcher would arrive in time. At 63 minutes, a new voice came on my son's phone. Who's this? My son, startled. Name's Patterson. I'm here to help you kids get home. But you're going to follow my instructions exactly. No questions, no debate. We clear. The voice was older, gravelly. Authority that came from decades, not rank. A watcher. How did you? We didn't hear you approach, my son said. That's because I'm good at this. Now, I need you to turn off all your lights. Headlamps, flashlights, phones. Total darkness. That's crazy, we can't. You can and will. Those things circling you hunt by light. The more you advertise your position, the more aggressive they get. Lights off. Now. A pause. Then I heard clicks as lights shut down. Good. Now sit tight and stay absolutely silent. Don't move. Don't talk. Barely breathe if you can manage it. I'm going to encourage these visitors to find somewhere else to hunt. How? Quiet. Silence on the line. Long, terrible silence. I could hear my son's breathing, deliberately controlled, scared but following instructions. Then, in the background, I heard it, a growl, deep, resonant, primal. The same sound I'd heard 15 years ago in a different forest, on a different night when I'd learned the truth about the world. The guardian, or one like him. More sounds, movement in forest that registered more through vibration than hearing. The clicking of the rakes changed tone, became frantic, alarmed. Then rapid sounds of retreat, breaking branches, disturbed foliage, things fleeing in panic. Silence returned. "They're gone," Patterson's voice said. "You can breathe normally now. Keep lights off for another 10 minutes. Then we're hiking out. I know trails that are safe even at night." "What was that thing?" My son's voice shook. "A local, very territorial. Doesn't like intruders, human or otherwise. You got lucky he considers you the lesser problem." A pause. "Your father called us in?" "Yes." "Smart man. Saved your lives. Now let's get you home." Part 8, target, 1000 words. My son and his friends were escorted out of the George Washington National Forest at 0347 hours. Patterson, the watcher, delivered them to a ranger station, filed a report about college kids getting spooked by wildlife, and vanished before they could ask meaningful questions. My son called me from the ranger station, voice hollow with shock. "Dad, what the hell is out there? Things that most people never see. Things that are better left alone." "That sound, that wasn't a bear. Wasn't anything I've ever heard." "No. And those other things, the ones making the clicking sounds, they were hunting us." "Yes." Long silence. I heard him processing, trying to reconcile what he'd experienced with what he believed about the world. "How long have you known?" he finally asked. 15 years. Since Kentucky. The helicopter crash. The one you don't talk about." "Yes. And you never said anything. Never warned me. Would you have believed me if I'd told you monsters were real, that certain forests were hunting grounds for things science doesn't acknowledge? Would you have listened? Or would you have thought your father had PTSD and needed medication?" He didn't answer. Didn't need to. We both knew the truth. "Come home," I said. "We'll talk. Really talk. It's time you knew." "What about Jake and Sarah and Marcus?" "They saw it too. Heard it. They'll rationalize it. Human brains are excellent at that. In a week, they'll have convinced themselves it was bears and coyotes and nighttime panic. Maybe one of them will hold on to the truth, will remember the real shape of what happened. But most will let themselves forget. Should I forget? I can't answer that for you. Forgetting is easier. Knowing is safer. Choose which you value more. I'm coming home." He arrived 8 hours later. Exhausted, scared, but alive. We sat in my study, the room my wife thought was for work, but was actually my archive. Maps of wilderness areas. Files of disappearances. Newspaper clippings of unexplained incidents. 15 years of obsessive documentation. I told him everything. Kentucky, the crash, the rakes, the Guardian, Caleb and the Watchers, the treaty, the infrastructure that keeps the boundary intact. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he stared at the maps on my wall. How many places like this are there? Territories like the one we were in? Hundreds, maybe thousands. Anywhere wilderness is deep enough, old enough, isolated enough. The Appalachians have the highest concentration in the eastern U.S., but they're in the Rockies, the Pacific Northwest, Alaska, part of Canada. Anywhere humans haven't completely dominated the landscape, and the government just allows it, manages it, there's no good alternative. Sending military into those territories to clear them out, you'd need divisions, heavy weapons, air support, and the casualties would be catastrophic. Not just military, but civilians in surrounding areas when the rakes got displaced and pushed into populated zones. Better to maintain the boundary. Let the Guardians do the work. The Guardians. He tested the word. The thing that saved us. What are they? I don't know. Nobody does. Officially. Surviving populations of an earlier hominid species. Gigantopithecus relatives. Maybe. Extremely intelligent. Tool-using. Territorial. They've learned to coexist with humans by maintaining separation. Stay in their territory, we stay in ours. And the rakes. Something else. Older, maybe. More predatory. The Guardians and rakes have territorial conflicts that predate human civilization. We just happen to live in the middle of their borderlands. My son processed this, eyes moving across the documentation I'd accumulated, evidence of a hidden world, proof that consensus reality was incomplete. What happens now, he asked. You choose. You can walk away. Go back to normal life. File this away as a weird experience. Most people do. Or you can acknowledge what you've learned. Change your behavior accordingly. Live with the knowledge that the world is stranger and more dangerous than you were taught. Did you have a choice? Not really. I was military, part of the system. They made it clear forgetting wasn't an option. But you're giving me the choice. Yes. He stood, walked to the window. Outside, suburban normalcy. Manicured lawns. Safe streets. The comfortable lie of civilization. I want no more, he said quietly. I want to understand. How do I? You don't, I interrupted. That's the price of knowledge. You know enough to be safe, to protect yourself and others. Learning more means getting involved, becoming part of the system. And that's a weight I don't want you to carry. You carried it. I didn't choose it. You can. He turned back to me, studied my face, seeing, maybe for the first time, the toll those years had taken, the hypervigilance, the obsession, the way knowledge had shaped and distorted my life. Teach me to be safe, he finally said. Teach me the rules, the boundaries, how to recognize danger. But you're right. I don't need to go deeper. I just need to survive. Relief flooded through me. Smart choice. Did you want me to make a different one? I considered lying. Decided he deserved truth. Part of me did. The part that's been alone with this knowledge for 15 years. That's had nobody to really talk to except 3 other men who are deliberately forgetting. But the larger part, the father part, is glad you chose safety over truth. Will I ever meet them? The other survivors. Maybe, if you need to. If carrying this knowledge becomes too heavy and you need people who understand. He nodded. Thank you for telling me. For trusting me with this. Thank you for listening. For believing. We sat in silence for a while. Father and son, sharing a terrible secret, bound by knowledge that separated us from the rest of the world. Eventually, my wife called us for dinner. We went, ate, made small talk, pretended everything was normal. But normal was over. For both of us now. That was 3 months ago. My cancer has progressed faster than doctors predicted. Weeks now, not months. I'm writing this final section from hospice, using what strength remains. My son visits daily. We talk about ordinary things, his job, his girlfriend, plans that stretch into a future I won't see. But sometimes, late in the evening when it's just us, we talk about the other thing. The real world beneath the comfortable lie. He started his own research. Careful, methodical, learning the patterns, the danger zones, how to recognize territory markers, what signs indicate guardian presence versus rake activity. Not to become a watcher, just to be aware, to be safe, to protect people he cares about. It's more than I could have hoped for. A legacy that matters more than medals or commendations. I've made arrangements. After I'm gone, this account will be released. Not everywhere. Not broadcast of mainstream media that would dismiss it or sensationalize it, but to specific communities. Forums of people who've had encounters, who've seen things, who suspect the truth but lack confirmation. They need to know they're not crazy. Not alone. That what they saw was real. And they need to know the rules. Stay out of deep wilderness during new moons. Avoid old-growth forests where the canopy is thick enough to block significant sunlight. Never camp in valleys with only one exit. If you hear coordinated clicking at night, break camp immediately and move to high ground with good visibility. Respect the boundaries. Respect the territories. And understand that sometimes the monsters you know protect you from the monsters you don't. To my unit, Harding, Jackson, Ortiz, wherever you are, thank you for being there that night, for surviving, for carrying this weight with me, even silently. To Caleb and Patterson and all the watchers, thank you for holding the line, for maintaining the boundary, for doing the work nobody acknowledges. To the guardian that saved us in Kentucky. I don't know if you understand gratitude, if such concepts have meaning in your world, but you spared us when you didn't have to. You pointed us towards safety. That matters. It mattered then. It matters now. Final warning, target, 800 words. Listen closely, because I don't have much time left, and this is the part that matters most. The wilderness is not your playground. It's not therapy. It's not an escape from civilization stress. It's someone else's home, multiple someone else's, in fact, and they were there long before we built cities and roads and GPS satellites. You are not the apex predator you think you are. In certain places, during certain conditions, you're prey. Intelligent prey that makes mistakes, that advertises its location with fires and laughter and music, that stumbles through territory it doesn't understand with arrogant confidence that nothing can touch it. You're wrong. The missing hikers you read about, the ones who vanish without trace, whose bodies were never found, whose disappearances get explained as misadventure or exposure, some percentage of those weren't accidents. They crossed boundaries they didn't know existed, entered territories where things hunt that don't appear in biology textbooks. And they died, not always quickly, not always cleanly. The rakes don't kill for food. They kill because humans in their territory represent competition, represent threat. They're intelligent enough to understand that humans multiply, that we spread, that today's lone hiker is tomorrow's trail system and next year's housing development. So they eliminate intruders, efficiently, thoroughly. And the guardians? Don't romanticize them. They're not gentle giants. They're not friendly forest spirits. They're apex predators with territorial instincts and intelligence that rivals or exceeds human cognition. They tolerate us because we've mostly learned to stay in our spaces, because the treaty holds. But tolerance isn't friendship. It's not protection. That night in Kentucky, the Guardian didn't save us because it liked us. It saved us because we were in its territory. The rakes were in its territory, and it doesn't tolerate competition. We were incidental, lucky, in the right place at the right time to benefit from a territorial dispute we didn't understand. Don't count on luck. Don't expect salvation. If you enter deep wilderness, understand you're entering someone else's world. Their rules apply. Your technology, your weapons, your human pride. Those mean nothing to things that have survived in those places for thousands of years. Here's what you need to know to survive. Trust local knowledge. When rangers close trails without clear explanation, they have reasons. When locals tell you certain areas are dangerous, believe them. The official reasons might be lies, but the danger is real. Respect the silence. If you're in forest and suddenly all wildlife goes quiet, no birds, no insects, nothing, you're being watched by something that frightens a native fauna. Leave immediately. Don't investigate. Don't wait for confirmation. Move. Never camp in valleys with one exit. Predators, human and non-human, use terrain to trap prey. Always have multiple escape routes. High ground is survival. Things that hunt in forests prefer the cover of thick vegetation. Exposed rocky areas, ridge lines, open spaces, these are safer. Not safe. Safer. Travel during full moons if possible. Many predators hunt more aggressively during dark moon periods. Visibility is your friend. Groups of 6 or more. Predators typically avoid attacking groups above certain sizes. The bigger your group, the less attractive a target you are. Fires are complicated. Fire provides visibility and warmth, but also advertises your presence. In low-risk areas, fires are fine. In territories with known predator activity, fires announce, here's food, come get it. Trust your instincts. Millions of years of evolution gave you prey instincts. When your hindbrain screams danger, when the hair on your neck rises, when you feel watched, listen. Your subconscious is processing threat cues your conscious mind hasn't identified. Don't rationalize. React, document, and report. If you see something unusual, tracks that don't match known animals, coordinated behavior in wildlife, structures that seem deliberately built, document it. Report it to rangers. Don't post it on social media for clicks. Real documentation goes to people who can actually respond. The treaty holds because both sides benefit. We stay out of certain places. The Guardians contain the rakes. Everyone survives. But treaties can break. Every year, human population grows. Wilderness shrinks. development pressure increases. The boundaries get tested, pushed, violated. And every year, the watchers have a harder time maintaining containment. Harder time keeping people out of places they shouldn't be. Harder time covering up incidents that reveal the truth. The balance is fragile. You can help maintain it by respecting the boundaries, by understanding that wilderness isn't conquered or tamed, it's tolerated, by teaching others that some places should remain untouched. Or you can ignore this, dismiss it as paranoia or delusion, roll your eyes at the crazy conspiracy theorists dying of cancer, making up stories. That's your choice. But when you're deep in old-growth forest, when the sun sets and the canopy blocks the stars, when you hear clicking in the darkness that sounds too coordinated to be natural, in that moment, you'll remember this warning, and you'll wish you'd listened. I'm tired now. The morphine is pulling me under. My son is here, holding my hand, and that's enough. That's good. My last coherent thought is this. The world is vast and strange and full of wonders and horrors. We understand so little. Control even less. But we survive. Because something has decided to let us. Because boundaries hold. Because treaties persist. Because watchers maintain the line. Because the guardians tolerate our presence in exchange for territorial respect. It's a fragile peace. An uncomfortable truth. A reality most people will never know. But you know now. You've been warned. You've been educated. What you do with that knowledge determines whether you're a survivor or a statistic. Choose wisely. Stay safe. Respect the boundaries. And for God's sake, stay out of the deep wilderness during the new moon. Nothing good happens there. Nothing human, anyway. The clicking you hear isn't branches settling. The eyes reflecting your flashlight aren't deer. The massive figure moving through trees isn't a bear. And that sound, that deep, resonant growl that makes your chest vibrate with primal terror, that's not the danger. That's what's standing between you and the real danger. The thing that hunts the hunters. The apex above the apex. The old man of the mountains who was here first and will be here last. Show some damn respect and maybe, just maybe, he'll let you leave his territory alive. That's the deal. That's always been the deal. We just forgot it for a while, got arrogant with our technology and weapons and SUVs. But the old rules still apply in the old places. They never stopped applying. We just stopped paying attention. Started believing our own myths about conquering nature, about being at the top of the food chain, in the deep wilderness, in the true wild places that remember what the world was like before humans. You're not at the top. You're not even close. You're tolerated, conditionally, temporarily, as long as you follow rules you don't understand and respect boundaries you can't see. Break those rules, cross those boundaries, and you'll learn what it means to be prey, to be hunted by things that coordinate, that plan, that understand tactics and terrain better than any special forces operator. Things that have been perfecting predation for longer than your species has existed. I've seen it, lived it, lost brothers to it, and spent 15 years trying to warn people who wouldn't listen, who couldn't listen, because accepting the truth would shatter their comfortable worldview. But you're listening now, aren't you? Because something about this rings true. Because maybe you've had your own experience, something you rationalize away, some encounter you convince yourself was nothing, some moment in the woods when everything felt wrong and you couldn't explain. Why? Trust that feeling. That survival instinct. That's millions of years of evolution screaming warnings your conscious mind wants to ignore. Listen to it. Honor it. Let it guide you away from places where humans aren't welcome, where the old hierarchies still rule, where the treaty between worlds is all that stands between you and horrors your nightmares can't imagine. This is my last warning. My final message. The only legacy that matters. I'm dying, and soon this voice will be silent. But these words will remain. And when you're planning that backpacking trip, that wilderness adventure, that off-trail exploration, remember them. Remember me. Remember that 8 men went into the Appalachian Mountains on a routine flight, and 3 came out changed forever. Don't let your story end worse than mine. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Share your own experiences in the comments if you've encountered something unexplainable in the wilderness. And stay safe out there. because a forest is listening, always watching, and it remembers everyone who enters. Most get to leave, but not all, not all.